Hello, and welcome back to Therapist Plays Stanley Parable. On today's episode, we're talking about control. Specifically, how does the narrator deal with losing control when the story doesn't necessarily go according to his plans? And how do we actually see that come up in our own lives? Because although we're not really dealing with this problem, there's lots of things in our own lives we can't control, and we can actually see some of the signs of why it's hard to deal with this in some of the narrator's communication. So there's a lot to learn from this. I am feeling a little under the weather, so I apologize if this episode is a little more meandering than usual, but nonetheless, I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back. All right, it's time for some more Stanley. So last time I was just told to pick my favorite time, whatever that means. I mean, 6 a.m. is pretty cool. It's I'm sort of a morning person. I say sort of because I don't always allow myself to be a morning person, but I definitely function the best when I'm intentional about that. So I'm gonna go with 6 a.m. It's not 6 a.m. right now, so yes, it is my favorite time of day. Or you could simply not resist giving me the correct time again. After all, I know how much you enjoy setting the time correctly. Okay, now I'm curious how accurate 6 a.m. is. Let's use another slider to find out. How accurate is 6 a.m.? Well, right now it's actually, 9 p.m. So it's very inaccurate. You know, can I just say, regardless of the accuracy of the clock, I'm having a great time adjusting these settings. I feel like I'm learning more about you and how you like things to be set. It's good to collect the data. I wish we had more sliders, but we've gone through all of the sliders I have. Perhaps I can invent some new sliders to gather new data on you. Shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, let me whip up a couple of new ones. Should be ready the next time you boot up the game. I'm so perturbed by this part of the meta-narrative. Although I am mostly curious to see where it goes. Okay, we're going to begin. And this time, I don't actually know what direction we're going to go in, and I'm not going to try to control this. I'm actually just going to sort of let my intuition guide me. We have tried a full defiance run and a full compliance with reservations run. And now I'm just curious, curious to sort of push the boundaries in different ways, like a child experimenting. And so,
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
One of the things...
To go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
One of the things that I am most curious to explore is what sort of variations of the narrator do we get as we deviate from these decisions. And I just realized that most of these computers are usually off, but these ones are actually on. What does this one do? Oh, I just turned it off. And this one? Is that a thing? Were there more I could turn off? That's got to be something, right? Okay, forget everything else I was going to do. This is now my mission.
How hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Oh, there's a computer in there. Can I... 425. How do I get in there? I gotta turn that machine off. Is there... No, there's no way to get in there, is there?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Well, is it possible to just go back that way? Why is this shot out brightness or something? There's an office behind there. How bizarre. Okay, well, okay, here I am again at the 2 doors. And like I said, I really want to see... I want to see what happens to the narrator, because I kind of have a theory about him and the player as well, and what makes our dynamic so interesting. we have to get a little bit into the subject of control. Like, how do we nestle ourselves into the protagonist role of our own lives? Because you do this, I do this, the narrator does this. And I do use that word protagonist very deliberately because actually the subject of control, psychologically, one of the ways that we can look at this is like, how do you tell the story of what happens to you and whether or not you were in control of those things? Because this largely determines whether you like find peace in some of your decisions. If you're going through your life and you are of the mindset that most things are in your control and those decisions play out, right? This may be like quite a self-esteem boosting thing. If you see that things don't work out, you may be second guessing how much control you have over things, or you may consider them personal failures. And everybody has a different way of sort of placing themselves in the status of control on every single decision that we make, right? And it's actually called the locus of control. And locus is a place, or places, actually. So it's the places of control. Where do we place ourselves in that role? And so we can generally put this on a spectrum between internal and external. And what that means is basically for the person who places control internally, they look at most things in their life as being a consequence of their own decisions. And so let's take a basic example before we really lay out the theory here, because I'm kind of curious to see where you fall on this spectrum here. And this is about storytelling, right? How do you tell the story of why things happen to you? So let's just say, for example, I'm late to work. On this extreme, if I'm a highly internalized thinker, my first thought is going to be lots of ideas about like what my choices were that led to this. Like, oh, I didn't set my coffee pot early enough, and so that set me off for the morning, and I took longer in the shower than I normally do because I stayed up late the previous night, and then I was feeling rushed on the road, and when I'm rushed, I'm paying less attention. And so like it's going to be a lot of like looking at my own decisions to explain the outcome of being late, okay? For the person on the other end, they're going to be looking at all of the variables that were external that happened that made this condition possible. They might look at that and say, well, I was late because there's a lot of traffic on the road between me and my workplace. There was an accident or increased police activity that made me have to take a certain kind of detour. My neighbors were up yapping all night, and so I didn't get enough sleep. And when I got up, the shower took longer than it needed to because it took forever for the water to warm up. Okay. Like, they're going to compile all of the experiences that were not their own decisions that explain the lateness, but like external factors, right? Now, here's the thing. Neither of these are like really that healthy to be on the extreme of, okay? Because there's already people out there, I'm sure, who are sitting there thinking, oh, well, this is just the person who denies culpability, and this is the person who takes responsibility. And it's actually not so simple. They are equally dysfunctional in extremes. And I'll get to why in more detail as we go, but it basically boils down to not everything in your life is a consequence of your actions. You could be making the most cleanest, perfect decisions, and there will be external factors that are barriers or delays or that sort of thing. And it's important and fair to recognize them. And also, not everything is an external force acting against you that creates friction in your life. Your decisions also matter. And so, like, our goal as people is to kind of try to combine both of these different ways of telling stories about our lives so that we develop kind of a healthy medium between self-confidence, self-esteem, action-oriented decision-making, but also acceptance of things that we can't control, right? So just keep that in mind as we go through this little journey together, is that this is not about internal good, external bad, or vice versa. We want some harmony here. But my theory about why this is such an interesting dynamic is because I think that I find the narrator on the extreme internal thinker, and let's say that Stanley, as much as he is a character, is he external? Like the archetype of Stanley is, right? He's on a path that he doesn't have a lot of control over, basically. Like even the decisions they tell you to make are not really yours. So I think the narrator wants this dynamic. I'm in control of everything. It's my story. It's my decision, and you follow them, right? The narrator does not like Stanley to be internal, where he says, but I make my own decisions, and where I end up is my own choice. The narrator says, no. Where you end up is my choice because I'm in control of this. And I think what we see is actually Stanley, or us as the player, we try to make our own choices, and we end up acting in very internalized ways. Like, I'm going to choose this door because I don't necessarily, maybe I don't like the idea of all of my decisions being externally imposed, and so I'm gonna test the waters and make my own. And that's frustrating for someone who really believes that like they're in full control of something. So that is our model for today's episode, and I will explain in more detail as we go along some of the benefits and downsides to both of these perspectives, and how you in your own life can sort of find some harmony here. So I think the best way to demonstrate this is by choosing the right door.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
So you can see that even when we make our own choice, the narrator, like the way he tells the story of what's happening, he even puts it back into like his own control, sort of preemptively setting up a decision that he knows we're going to have to make, which is going into the lobby, so that it can still be a part of his design.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. So utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
Well, I'm not going to admire it for too long.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
So, yeah, we actually haven't explored down this way, so I'm going to see.
He toured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
To the opposite door. Oh, that leads me back to the office. But what is this? There's a big red button. Kind of want to see what it does.
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here, it's, left.
He doesn't seem entirely sure about that. I don't think there's actually any other way to go either.
Oh, no, it's to the right, my mistake.
Are you fucking with me now?
No, not the right. Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please? Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right.
Oh, this is so perfect.
Okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
So the highly internalized thinker relies a lot on self-certainty, because every storyline in their life, whether the coffee was on the pot when they woke up, whether they ended up late for work, whether they were responsible for the breakup or the job loss or the promotion, right? Like we tend to look at our own choices first and only if we are highly internalized, right? And most people are not on the extremes of either of these, but the narrator, I feel like, does represent that quite a bit. And we see that in a couple of his traits here. So one of the things that's really apparent about someone with a highly internalized locus of control is that they do tend to take a lot of initiative. Because they look at their choices as being the driving force behind most things, they're not really like waiting around for other things to happen. Like they're quite motivated by self-determination. And that can make them like highly creative, right? In a sense, because they're not looking externally for a ton of inspiration. They really feel like if it's going to get done, it has to be my own choice. So very like action oriented. They can be great leaders in a certain way because they may look to themselves for the responsibility to direct people, right? And they may have a very strong vision about something, which is kind of what I see. Like the narrator has this very specific vision about how things are supposed to go. But that's also where you can see some of the downsides, because if I'm so driven by my sense of control, my actions are mostly what's happening, I'm going to have a really hard time as a leader delegating. Because like, why would I look to someone else to do something when I feel like most of what happens in my life is due to my own decisions? And you'll see that like there's probably someone with a little bit of healthy balance here who says like, oh, but I delegated them to do it and that was my decision. But like, I think the narrator kind of has a hard time with that. Like, he doesn't really like the idea of, Stanley, where do you think we should go? Like, he doesn't delegate any objectives to us. So I think he's going to struggle with delegation. And it also tends to lead to a lot of perfectionism in a really unhealthy way, like to the point of paralysis. You can just see it in the way that he closed the door and then he shut this one and he had to check his papers. And like the idea that we're going to go in a direction that wasn't his design or that he wasn't completely sure about, it's like confusing and frustrating, right? There is no wiggle room in the completely internalized view for speculation or for things to just sort of like, or to just like sort of wing things, right? Because they just don't really tend to trust that relying on external forces like circumstance or coincidence is really a viable strategy to anything. So we may also find that this person is very self-reliant, right? Very, very independent, but at the same time, they like really struggle with asking for or receiving help because like I just don't trust that someone else can help me do it. And this is where we sort of see this show up in therapy, right? The sort of conflict in this perspective, which is that this is a person who might come in and say, I can own all of my own problems. I'm responsible for these missteps and I'm responsible for fixing them. But will they really listen to any guidance or any interpretation? Maybe not, because they really struggle to integrate an outside perspective. Not because they can't understand it, but they may reject it because they feel this sense of like burden to do it all themselves. Like, it's not that they don't think it's possible to have help or that it necessarily could be valid, but they don't believe that it is the right way to do it. And so they have a really hard time reaching out for help or receiving it when it's given. They may see that as a sign of weakness, right? To receive help or to receive some kind of donation or support. Because in their mind, like doing that is kind of a threat to what they see as their main qualities of self-esteem and confidence. And so you get like some conflicts and some confusion when this person actually has to accept that things are not working out in their perfect design, right? There's some good qualities here. Like another great one is they're pretty good at owning their accomplishments. Like they're willing to give themselves praise and, a compliment every once in a while. And they're not sitting there like getting down on themselves or denying any of their own skill sets. That they can be self-confident, but at the same time, they really struggle to move on from mistakes. They'll sort of toil over them over and over and like workshop and redo the decisions and this kind of perfectionism to like the point of frustration because they always assume there is another way to go back and change things. And sometimes there is not, right? Coming back to that example of a breakup, like this person might have a quick rebound, right? If they're relying on some of their positive virtues there. But at the same time, they may really struggle with the moving on part. And like, what you'll hear from them is like, what can I do? What am I supposed to do? There has to be a way to get this person back. And at that point, it's like, sometimes stuff is actually just out of your control, right? And it's really hard to move on because you actually have to accept that not everything that happened to you was a choice you made that you miscalculated. And it's like, the whole system doesn't support the idea that like I'm saying that to someone because, yeah, if I'm the person offering that help, they may reject it because it's not coming from them. Like it wasn't their idea. So like the system itself prevents growth out of it in a sense. So we'll struggle to move on, and just how this person will own a lot of their accomplishments and see themselves as, you know, worthy of praise, but they also own all of their problems to a sort of like default. Again, in the extreme, we might see certain variants of eating disorders show up in this kind of behavior, where someone may be clashing with things that are not in their control, like certain parts of their genetics or any kind of other mental health stuff going on. And they will retreat into like, well, what is the thing I can control that's internal? Well, I can like restrict my diet. I can like restrict myself, right? That I'll exercise the control internally to make it seem to me I'm moving in the right direction, you know, for body type or whatever it is. Because like having control, having it be my own takes priority over everything else. And so, yeah, this is kind of the side of the spectrum here that I sort of see the narrator falling into, is just someone who really can flourish when they're in charge and things go according to plan, and they can make great designs for the narrative and all these things, and very capable in lots of ways, but complete dysfunction when they have to come up against any kind of resistance to their control or things happen that they don't expect. Like wherever we are right now, he seems really uncertain and confused about what direction this is heading in. And that seems kind of frustrating for him.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just have to get back to, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. How about, rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
So when things don't go well, I'll just restart it, right? Like, what did I say? Like, they really struggle with making progress on things when they're not working, so they're constant restarters. That perfectionist mentality. And I guess we are really back at the start.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Turn this off again.
Go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley... Wait, what? No, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something change? Stanley, did you change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors?
No.
Move the story somewhere or... Hold on. Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere.
Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story.
Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
Okay. I guess we're going to try to find the story. Which door should I go down? Should I go this way? What's over here?
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
So I think as we go here,
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
we're probably
Decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
we're probably going to see what I'm talking about. This sort of like really strong tension between like things I believe should be in my control, but that they aren't. So let's talk about the other side of this equation, right? Like what's different between someone who's thinking highly internally and who's on the other side of the spectrum, right? Well, it's kind of the reverse in a sense. On the highly externalized side, the virtues that you're going to see are someone who is highly resilient to change. Because this is the kind of person who is not really thinking about like their personal decisions being in control of everything. They arrive much easier to points of acceptance where they just say like, oh, things are as they are, and there's nothing I could have done to change them. So they don't get stuck in this perfectionistic moving on sort of thing. They may be a little more adventurous because they're like, yeah, look, the world is as it is. I can't control the forces that are going to interact with me. And so like I'm very open to whatever kinds of experiences come my way. They can also make for great leaders, but you'll just see different qualities, right? In a healthy environment, this may be like that they really trust the people that they're leading to make their own choices, right? But if this is calibrated to the unhealthy degree, maybe they like won't ever take responsibility for anything, right? So they, on the negative side, tend to be quite blameful. You'll find that it's very hard for them to own up to mistakes and problems because they'll always be looking for, well, this person made me do it, or the world is just set up like that, right? Like they'll sort of find these abstractions and ideological reasons to explain most of the problems in their life. They may struggle with initiative, right? If I'm like, again, on the extreme of this, I don't really see the beginning of most problems as being a decision of my own. And so I might really be waiting around for something to compel momentum for me. But at the same time, when this is like working healthily, right? Like this is the type of person who is much more open to receiving help. They'll have an easier time accepting that other people can affect change in their lives and trusting them, right? Like they may have an easier time trusting others. In a sense, they may be generally more optimistic, right? Even when bad things happen, you often hear from the person who is like way more calibrated in this direction, like things always work out in the long term kind of perspective, right? Like the universe will set itself right in a way because they just see the combination of forces around them as being like not something we're really made to control every part of. So it creates that resilience. But this also creates like a similar imbalance of inaction, like a hesitation. And just like this person has an easier time accepting a compliment, if I tell someone, hey, you did a great job, you know, the internal person is able to see that, like, yeah, I actually put my skills to use and I did a great job. The externalized person cannot take compliments. If I say, you did a great job, they'll say, oh, no, you don't understand. I just got lucky. It's not my decisions that lead to my success. It's just luck. It's a force. It's whatever. So this person may be really less like self-oriented and struggle with some of those self-esteem things. And so you can see that like on both sides of this, right? Like I said, not one of these is not objectively better than the other. What we want is to sort of adopt the positive traits of both of them. Can we be highly resilient to things that we cannot change? And also action-oriented to the things that we can. Yes, right? This whole perspective, the locus of control, is not diagnostic. It's not like you're stuck like this. You absolutely can change this. But it does take sort of realizing where you lie on the spectrum, right? So let's see if we continue, if we see some more of these examples show up.
Okay, yep, it's worse.
No doors.
Remembering this wrong. It's possible the story is back where we just came from. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
You can even see that, like, 3 layers deep into this part of the narrative, he's still saying, oh, I'm just remembering something wrong. He hasn't even visited the idea that like something outside of his decisions could be making this happen just yet. So maybe we go back.
Aha! I knew we'd miss something. The story. Here it comes. No, wait, never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way and retrace our steps.
Okay.
Now this... Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley? Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win!
He just gives up.
You put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off. So, good job. Oh, no. No, I don't feel right about this at all.
No, it's not you. It's not really you.
In any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time. I have to restart.
One of the interesting things about this whole methodology as well, which is another layer to it, is this isn't just how you think about your life. It also tends to take shape in how you think about other people's lives. So if I'm a highly internalized thinker, yeah, I'm telling lots of stories about what's happening to me and why those are all my decisions. But when I tell stories about other people's lives, I'm also assuming that the rules are the same for them. I'll look at someone like Stanley, if I'm the narrator, and say, well, you didn't do anything to win this. This person is looking at other people in their lives and they're like, why is that fucking idiot making that stupid decision? If someone's having a bad day, their first interpretation is going to be like, oh, well, that person made some kind of mistake. They have a bad attitude. They're doing something that must have caused this. Because when I'm in a bad mood, I know it's something that I caused. And so one of the extreme angles on this is that they can really struggle with empathy, right? They'll look at someone's life and they'll be very blameful to them, right? On the political spectrum, you'll hear a lot of, you're just poor because you're making bad decisions. If you got in trouble, it must have been because you did something wrong, not because that you may belong to a historically marginalized population and society is in some ways set up for certain groups of people to have a harder time doing things. They're not looking at that. They don't think that this factors into the equation at all. They're dead set on, like, if you're having some sort of issue, it's your fault. All of my successes are because of decisions I made. I didn't get any help from anybody. I'm self-made. And you can see the destructive sort of mentality that this wreaks onto people below you, because your mentality is that all of their problems are their own fault, when actually there's a lot of biological, sociological, economic factors that determine lots of people's problems that have nothing to do with their own decisions. And on the same time, we also don't want to be highly external and say that, like, nothing is my own responsibility to change. But I think the narrator looks at Stanley and is like, hey, Stanley, you're capable of making these choices for yourself. Why aren't you making them? I'm able to make my own choices.
All right, I've got a solution.
You've got the solution.
Sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable adventure line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
It's pretty simple. Okay, I'll listen. I'll listen this time. I think that the narrator wants us to be an external thinker, though. Like, that's where he thrives, is if we are someone who doesn't think for themselves. Like, he wants the archetype of Stanley to be someone who just follows directions, literally painted on the ground. And so whenever we make our own choice and we're like, I have my own self-determination and will, it's kind of a difficult thing for him to settle. Right, because as much as...
The line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination still a story? Simply by the act of moving forward, are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Okay, Stanley, I need to follow this train of thought for a minute.
I don't think he believes this.
Now, we can both agree that the nature of existence is in fact a byproduct of one's subjective experience of that existence, right? Okay, now if my experience of your existence rests inside of your subjective experience of this office, is this office, in fact, the skeleton of my own relative experiential mental subjective construct? Whoa. Hang on. That got a bit weird back there. Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
Bro is crashing out trying to make sense of why what he planned isn't happening. Having a full existential crisis out here. I don't think that explanation is going to be in any way satisfying for him. Like, that is such a forced attempt to position the laws of nature as determining this, when really deep down he just believes that this is all some sort of fuck up. My God, this is insane. This is mad. This is the actual breakdown of this narrator's mind. It just has me going in random fucking directions. It's just gonna be nothing.
Wait, cut the music, go back and look at that fern.
What?
Stanley, this fern will be very important later in the story. Make sure you study it closely and remember it carefully. You won't want to miss anything.
Okay. Got a good view of it.
Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
No. Oh.
Oh, no, not again, Line. How could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it.
Restart. Oh, God.
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction?
I think he'll just bend any kind of reality to make it seem like he's still in control, at least in this variant.
Yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go wild. Use your imagination.
I mean, I don't really have a choice.
Stanley, I'm ready for it.
I don't know.
Oh, no, not you again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
Okay. I like that he's not yelling at me this time, at least. Oh, I guess the line's done now. At least I'm not the villain this time in the story.
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control. How important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. So I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere, the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one. Another victory for logic. Stanley, our destiny awaits.
The confusion ending.
Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined?
Oh, the ultimate disappointment.
I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? I get to decide. Why don't I get a say in all of this? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story. Wouldn't you agree? I'm not sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
What? Interesting. So we got basically what happened to me when I started playing this game. Because, like, I'll just be honest. I fall probably a little more over to the internal side than the external side. And you can see that in how, like, my approach to this game, when someone else is like, I'm making the choices for you. You have limited choices. I'm like, well, let me sort of try to take the lead, right? And so I struggle with some of that, right? And you'll find, like, if you really do a deep dive on someone psychologically, that different categories of things, you'll see a different orientation. So, for example, when it comes to, like, creative things, I'm highly internal. Like, I sort of need to be in control. I have my lovely moderation team is constantly like, Brady, do you need any help editing your videos for YouTube? Because they sure do take a long time. And I'm always like, no. I sort of struggle to relinquish some of that because I have a bit of a type A, perspective on it, and I want it to be a certain kind of way. And that's an area of work for me, to sort of relinquish some of that control so that I can be like a better team player as a creative. I don't struggle so much with this when it comes to, like, my clinical work. Like, it's way easier for me I don't really need to be in control of anything. In fact, like, the whole idea of therapy is that you're not trying to control anything. You want to be as neutral a force in the person's life and sort of instill the values of self-determination in them, right? So I'm like not controlling in that sense. It's more so when it comes to, like, my life, right? When I try to make sense of what happens to me, I look very internally at myself. But other people, it's like easier to sort of have a more dynamic view. However, when it comes to, like, health stuff, like, health is a category I'm, like, super external in, where I'm like, man, I sometimes feel like I could do so many things to keep myself healthy, but out of nowhere, I could just get sick like I am right now. Like, fuck, man, I eat well, I'm exercising, I haven't done anything to get myself sick, but here I am, sick. Like, what kind of control do I have over that? None, basically, right? So I'm sort of becoming, sort of confused. But I'm also a little more resilient to it, as I'm like, okay, there's pockets of this that I can control. I can, take care of myself, rest. When I go to the doctor, I like fully sort of relinquish control because that's the expert. They know what they're talking about. I don't, second guess what they have to say because I think I have some sort of better idea. Like you'll find, pockets in people's lives where somewhere in between, right? Like I said, this is not about your one or the other. I'm talking about them in extremes because that's an easy way to show the dichotomy, right? But generally, you're some sort of mix, and it's our work to sort of try to adopt the positive virtues of both. But you also see people who adopt the negative traits of both. And this is where we'll see, quite a bit of dysfunction, where we struggle to ask for help. We can't really delegate things. We're highly perfectionistic, can't move on from things, entertain so much misery about our own problems, don't empathize with people, are extremely blameful of other people, super hesitant, can't act, and also don't take any compliments. And you can just kind of be a mix of all of this stuff. And right, that takes quite a bit of work to work your way out of that too. So that was an interesting look at the narrator. Now let's see what happens if we follow the path of the narrator's control for a little bit. But then distance ourselves from it. New content. I think we should wait for that. I haven't seen the regular content.
Set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Okay, I'm going the way I'm supposed to, for now.
There was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
What is this? Broom Closet.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Broom Closet. This is kind of odd.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
I think you're kind of emphasizing the lack of purpose here, but...
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Oh, how does this feel, narrator? To not be in control.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why?
Are you struggling with my inaction?
Here, I'm genuinely confused.
Well, now I'm just curious.
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever.
I don't
I
know.
would have thought to mention it.
I feel like the fact that you didn't mention it made it a more salient item for exploration.
This is somehow its own branching path.
Yes.
When you go talk about this with your friend, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." Your friends find this concerning.
Yes, that would be concerning. Are you mocking me?
Ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
What? Where is this coming from?
Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard.
Okay, before he finishes his thought, I haven't talked about why you're like this. Why would you develop a persuasion to internal or external in this sense? Well, a lot of that has to actually do with your upbringing. In this continuing, somewhat unexpected series on like psychology of parenting, I guess. It's not really the avenue I think most people view Stanley Parable from, but I actually think there's quite a bit of psychological depth to that angle. If I am this kind of person and you're going to start seeing that extreme criticism of other people, like I was saying, we don't just view ourselves like this. We're highly insistent on other people being like this. It works its way down the chain. I may be like this because my parents might have been like this. And so you can see how if I'm a child and I fail a test, what is my highly internalized parent going to say? It's your fault. If you didn't do well, it's because you didn't study. It's because you're stupid. If you're being picked on, you must have done something to upset those bullies. If he broke up with you, you probably deserved it. You'll see this toxic imposing of this worldview on other people as well. Like everything is your responsibility to make better, right? And so if it's not better, you must have done something wrong. You must have fucked it up. Why do you fuck everything up? And then as a child, I learned to tell the stories about my own life this way, right? Like, oh, I fuck everything up. That's what my parents, are telling me. And so now when I look at the events of my life, I'm alone because I can't be loved. I am stuck in a dead-end job because I have no skills. I'm not creative because I'm stupid or lazy. And it stunts this person's ability to see any of the positive virtues that come with an internalized perspective because they're so focused on the problem conditions and why they must be responsible for them because that's what's being reinforced their whole life. On the other side of this, you may have the highly externalized parent who is kind of looking at their child's life and doesn't note any of their own accomplishments, right? Like, oh, well, if you're successful, it's because you got lucky. Oh, you're lucky that she likes you because there's nothing good about you on your own. And so you should appreciate that. Why are you so ungrateful about everything? Can't you see that the universe clearly likes you? And so you just get a very different sort of toxic inversion of that, right? And then this person grows up unable to take ownership of anything in their life either, right? This person is taking too much ownership and everything is their fault and they're unlovable and for all of these reasons. And you could come across the same problem on either side. Does anyone love me? No, because I'm too much of a fuck up to be loved. And over here, no, because the world hates me and I've never been given that opportunity. What we're seeing here is, the unfortunate waterfall effect of highly internalized locus of control being used to dictate our own faults by how self-destructive we must be.
Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
I guess we've exhausted his frustration with this particular part of the narrative. Well, that was bizarre.
Second player, it's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't. You too? I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again. Coming to a staircase,
No.
Stanley walked upstairs
Damn
to
it.
his boss's office.
Okay. This... Oh, it's a bathroom. To be rich, is it a crime? To commit crimes, isn't it rich? What a life it would be to have to pick just one. Extreme bathrooms. Okay.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. But it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the just
Damn it.
opened all by itself. And
I hate that.
The hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
By the way, yeah, I know there's like a contingent of people showing up to this playthrough who are like, dude, you are way overthinking this game. I know. That's like the whole thing. That's the whole point. I'm not really trying to just like play through a game that you've seen before and show you endings that you've seen before and reactions that you've probably seen before. I like my intention with the this game, but I guess this whole channel is really like, I think these games are interesting prompts for discussions about like real psychology, right? And I know that the narrator is just that. He's not really a thorough character. I'm mostly just like taking the context of his vocal tone and communication style and extrapolating that to like, okay, where do we see this in real life? Like, what gives someone in real life the kind of communication style that we're seeing here? It may not perfectly match up with what's actually happening in the storyline, because the storyline is kind of a shifting labyrinth of nonsense at times. But it's fun. To me, it's fun anyways. I hope you're having fun as well. I just enjoy the idea of playing these games, but maybe you come away with some understanding about like your life or someone in your life.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him?
I don't know.
This question would not go unanswered for long.
So I've been down here before. Can you just go back up?
Whoops.
You can.
Never mind. Stanley actually got back into the elevator and went back up. Silly me. Why did Stanley do that when he knew that it would just lead back to his boss's office? Well, that's a great question. I just can't wait to find out.
I don't know. I'm just pushing stuff. Okay. Now what?
Here we are, Stanley. It's your boss's office. Exactly the way it was before you got onto the elevator. It's still just exactly what it is.
Is it?
The decision you've made to come up here and look at the office again. This has fleshed out the plot of the story in new and fascinating ways I could have never anticipated. It's
Good.
a keen eye for storytelling that you have, an incisive rapid fire of critical plot points, one after the other, weaving a rich tapestry of uncompromising narrative. Wow. I'm bolted to the edge of my seat.
I think my theory does hold, though. You can see, like, his... When he loses a bit of control, he resorts to ridiculing us for our need for control. Like, he becomes the same kind of defiant, punky brat that I was being the first time I was told what to do and said nope. Okay, maybe there actually isn't anything else to do up here. Do I have to go back down?
Incredible. Now he's getting back into the elevator and going down again. Gentlemen, how does he keep coming up with all of this? Did you think we were going to go forward down the It's time once again to go back up in the elevator.
This is a good story.
Even begin to grapple with what might be up there. Is it the boss's office again? Or what if it's the boss's office this time? The suspense is killing.
What a frustrating thing to be the person who designed this whole thing, but not be able to be the one who controls how it plays out. He has to rely on someone else, which is like totally psychological damage to the highly internal person.
Oh my God. The boss's office. This absolutely changes everything for me. Give me a timeout here for a minute while I process this. Okay, I'm ready. I'm prepared to embrace this stunning revelation and to move forward with... No, wait. No, I need more time to process.
Okay, I see. We're just in a power struggle now.
All right. I have fully come to terms with it. I have made space in my worldview for this astonishing new reality. As
have
before,
you?
I turn to your expert eye for gripping narrative, Master Stanley.
How many times is it going to let me do this?
Of course. Going back down in the elevator. How did I not anticipate it? Sure, now it's obvious, but you have to understand that 30 seconds ago, this kind of thing had never been attempted before. I had no frame of reference to even anticipate it. That's just how revelatory Stanley's decision-making is. A breath of fresh air in a landscape of storytelling that has grown stale and repetitive. You know what? I've just thought of something. Hold on, let's stop for a moment. Don't you realize? It's the anticipation, Stanley. You and I, we have no way of knowing what will be at the top of this elevator. But the suspense, the agony of waiting and anticipating and having to guess, that's the real thrill. I don't want to let that feeling go. It's so precious, so fleeting. Why don't we take this elevator ride nice and slow?
Okay. I'm cool with that.
There we go. Isn't this so much more exciting? You know, Stanley, it seems like nowadays the only thing that audiences want is to be shocked as loudly and frequently as possible. They want big, explosive moments flung right in their faces from the very moment that things get started. But where's the tension? Where's the trust in the audience to build a slow and nuanced appreciation for the story, the characters? Why aren't we given time to imagine the surprises? To have to think and to anticipate and then to marvel at the eventual reveal. This is storytelling, Stanley. What you and I are doing right now. This is the most exciting narrative to be developed in years. And it's really all because of you. You're the one who took this bold step of revisiting the exact same locations over and over. Truly, I mean it. This is unique and different. It's not like anything else out there. You see, I want stories that surprise me, Stanley. I want to have to think. I want to be engaged and not pandered to. We're being fed such unimaginative drivel all the time, and we all know it, which is why we're so starved for content that makes us feel sharp and vital and alive. That's why people like you so much, Stanley. Because you're not afraid to spit in the face of tradition. You're a role model, you know? People look up to you. Which is why... Oh, I didn't know when to spring this on you, but, well, I've gathered a little press conference for you, so that you can talk about your work and your storytelling and your life. Yes, I know you're not much for the public eye, but I thought it would especially mean a lot to the people who have been following you from the beginning. They really look up to you, Stanley.
I don't know if you realize the impact you have on them. This is the kind of gesture that might leave a tremendous impact on them for the better. Oh good, we're here.
Okay, what do we got?
Okay, the room where we're holding the press conference should be just around the corner here somewhere.
World's healthiest human being. World world peace baby. This is kind of the world peace baby right here.
Ah, yes, here it is, just through this door.
Okay.
All right, are you ready? I've told them you're going to speak a little bit about the nature of surprise in storytelling and what it means to craft a truly unpredictable narrative. Oh, don't worry, you'll do great. Just be yourself and speak from the heart. I'm really proud of you, Stanley. Okay, it looks like they're ready for you. Go get them.
What is about to happen? The dude who came up with pizza. Wow. All this for me? Right. Okay, so I think this is where we will pause it again for now. I'm curious to see if some of these theories that we're presenting do continue to play out over the runs, right? We're seeing that parental figure voice coming from the narrator in a transactional sense. We're also seeing highly internalized locus of control, right? A need to impose limits and structure. When those things break down, we're identified as a child, we're restricted further, we're insulted, like all of these things. So far, those seem to be elements of the narrator that cross over run to run. And look, I think this is kind of the fun of psychology in general, right? Like, it's about looking at the disparate puzzle pieces of a person and trying to fit together the parts of it that you can't necessarily see on the surface, right? Because no one comes into therapy and is just like, here is my entire psychological profile that I know everything about myself. Like, people don't just do that. We have little bits of awareness and insight about certain things about ourselves, but like we go into that process hoping to explore the edges of the map, right, in terms of our own lives. And so this is kind of often what the work can look like, right, is as we explore problems, we're listening for where do these breakdowns happen? Do they happen in someone's communication? Do we see that in all of this person's relationships, they become kind of an enforcer of their ideals when the other person doesn't live up to them? And how did that come to be? How did this become a coping style, right? Is that something they heard in their household growing up? Is that a way of trying to exert control, you know, in the absence of control other places in their lives, right? Like, we're always trying to understand what is the point of a person's life from which we can build momentum towards some kind of like positive change. And yeah, we're not going to change anybody's life in, you know, this sort of diorama of a video game. But it's an interesting template for understanding our own lives. And maybe some of the most important people in yours as well. So we've knocked a couple more endings out today. I hope you enjoyed this a little more explorative detour into the world of Stanley Parable. And I will see you all again for the next one soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.